Cadance was sitting in the palace garden to enjoy the day when suddenly a royal guard appeared. "Excuse me, your highness, a letter has just arrived." "Thank you," she said and thanked the guard. And the letter she wrote, "Dear Cadance, it had been a while since I had been to Crystal Empire. You know, being a princess of friendship and a teacher at the School of Friendship is quite a busy time, so but now when the school is over for the summer break, I thought coming over to see you and Flurry after you know what happened with my older brother, Shining Armor. And I also bring you with me Starlight Glimmer. She wanted to see you also at first since you haven't seen her in a while either, so I will be in Crystal Empire by tomorrow at noon. Signed, Twilight Sparkle." Cadence was more than happy to be able to see Twilight after such long time. She understands that being a princess of friendship, a teacher at the School of Friendship takes a lot of time. But when she read in the letter about Shining Armor, it brought back quite a sadness in her heart. For about a year ago, Shining Armor passed away in an accident. It was during the winter when he was informed that a group of ponies, mountain climbers, actually was trapped in the mountains outside of the city. He then agreed to take at least a few of the royal guards who was quite experienced in mountain climbing, so they actually went there. Unfortunately, when they arrived in the area, the wind had picked up so much speed, so the Pegasus royal guard couldn't even fly. Some of them tried, but the wind was so strong that they couldn't even fly up there. But luckily for the royal guards, even the Pegasus was still very much skilled and well experienced rock climbers. They were able to reach the level where the ponies who was trapped under beneath the snow. When they arrived, there were unfortunately at least 5 ponies deep under the snow. Even after they tried to dig out, they were able to save all 5. But at the moment and when the last pony had been managed to be dug out, an avalanche happened. One of the ponies, by accident, had a bad sneeze, which caused a loud sound to echo from the mountains, which triggered the avalanche. Shining Armor informed the other guards to take the ponies to shelter, at least behind some rock or something, fast as he could. He was able to use his own magic to block some of the avalanche, but it was too much. The last what he heard from Shining Armor, he was screaming to take shelter. They actually found him beneath the avalanche a few days later, and he was remembered as a great leader, great ruler guard, and as a family man for the royal family. That was a year ago. Cadence was really heartbroken because she loved him so deeply. She wasn't sure if she was now able to maintain the rule without him. There were times that she was thinking of taking Flurry Heart, stepping down from the throne, and gave the throne to someone else so that she rather just live in Canterlot with her adopted aunts, Celestia and Luna. But it was actually Twilight who managed to convince her because by doing so, it's almost allowing allowing the memories of Shining Armor to be forgotten. Because with the sacrifice what Shining Armor did was a bad way to show how much he really cared about the Crystal Empire. But even if she wanted to be stepping down on the throne, who else would even be qualified to be as the next heir? Because Twilight was the princess of friendship and she had her own castle in Ponyville. Luna and Celestia had their own castle in Canterlot. There were no other qualified for it even until Flurry was old enough for herself to decide if she wanted to be the next heir, unless Prince Blueblood would have been chosen as the next heir to the throne. Even though he was asked, but he declined because he didn't want to be a king or a prince of a kingdom. He preferred to just be a normal noble in Canterlot. So, thanks to Twilight's convincing, Cadance decided to stay behind and maintain the rule with peace and love. But even some time after that she had lost shining armor, there were times she didn't feel love at all. Every time when she was smiling, talking to other ponies with so much smile and love, there were no love in all those words. There were emptiness because she felt empty in her heart. It was understandable because she had just lost her beloved husband, her co-ruler of the empire. And now, a year later had passed. She still remembers because the letter happened to arrive just a few days after the Memorial Day of the loss of Shining Armor. Many of the residents in Crystal Empire still remember today, and they actually even raised a statue in his honor as the great leader of the Crystal Empire. And they actually made it of pure crystal as a symbol, not because he was a ruler, not because he was a royal guard captain, but he was honest, loyal, beloved, not only by the residents of the Crystal Empire, but by his wife, his sister, his parents, all the friends that he had made over the years. Now he was always going to be remembered as the great leader, great friend, great family man, a great brother. By the next day, Twilight arrived to Crystal Empire along with Starlight Glimmer. They were actually approached by a guard at the station. The guard informed them that Cadance was unfortunately a little bit unavailable for the moment, but she will be able to see them around noon, which both Twilight and Starlight completely understood. So, meantime, they just walked around in the Crystal Empire until around lunch. They arrived to the palace. They were greeted by Cadance as usual. Cadance, it has been a while, hasn't it? Said Twilight back to her. Yeah, it has. Even Twilight and Starlight could tell something bothered Cadance, but they never even said anything. In fact, afterwards they actually went to the dining hall where they had lunch and they talked about old memories from when Twilight was young, how Cadance had the really much had this both the nerves and also very much patient, being able to look after a such young unicorn at the time. But after lunch, Twilight went to spend time with Flurry, who is now 5 years old, and of course, Flurry was so happy to see her aunt. She wanted to teach her, or at least show her, what spells she had learned over the past few months. Especially some of those spells that she had learned from Sunburst and even from her own dad before he passed away. Cadance, unfortunately, were not available since she just didn't felt that she wanted to be around any other ponies at the time. So she went to the palace garden. Of course, and while he was sitting there, oh, hi, Cadence, can I sit down next to you? Asked Starlight. Starlight actually was looking around for Cadence because she saw that something was bothering her. Yeah, it's fine, said Cadence. Starlight sat down next to Cadence. At first, they didn't say any a single word at all. But then Starlight broke the silence. So, how's things been for you ever since, you know, it's has been tough, you know? I mean, even back then, just shortly after, Shining Armor passed, I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave this place because it brought back some bad memories when that happened, the accident, when I was informed that he was found but not even alive. I I understand that, but I can't honestly don't even understand why though. I mean, first, I understand that you and Shining Armor were assigned as the new rulers of the Empire. I mean, considering the fact that your ancestor, Princess Amor, was your direct ancestor, was the one who ruled this place and it was only like your only rightful place to be ruler, but understanding that, but honestly, I just don't I can't even imagine the feeling of lost someone some point like that. And but in the same, I understand also why you wanted to leave. Being in a place that will bring back some bad memories, it's more than understanding, said Starlight to Cadence. Cadence was only nodded. Yeah, I mean, even though Flurry has so much happy times here, she always played with her father in the palace garden. They always went to the market, practiced magic together. This place has so much deep memories for her. And even when I told her shortly afterwards that even she was way too young to even understand completely, but now she completely understands that her dad is gone and that even I wanted to leave, but she didn't. She didn't want to leave. I understand. I mean, it's kind of the same when I was very young, maybe around Flourish age, you know? Oh, you're you're talking about the time when Sunburst discovered his cutie mark and he was sent away to Celestia School to get the unicorn? Yeah, exactly. She was talking about that moment when Sunburst had discovered his true cutie mark and also his true purpose, and at how Sunburst, who was Starlight's only childhood friend at the time, still living there, suddenly was sent off, leaving behind. She felt betrayed, hurt, sadness, almost the same emotion as Caden has felt ever since the loss of Shining Armor at the time about a year earlier. Cadence, you know, I know for a fact that, you know, Twilight is both happy that you decided to stay here, but also at the same time, just trying to be the best. Cadence understood exactly what Starlight meant. She understood that the fact they shared the same type of pain of believing that they had lost someone that was never going to be back. Even though that deep down, Starlight understood the loss of someone that she beloved so much would never be able to return. So Starlight decided to change the topic because she wanted to make something different. So
They started to bring in some bad jokes, which made Cadence smile a bit and laughing. But deep down, he just wanted to be happy again, truly happy. So Twilight and Starlight had decided to stay in town for a few days. Since it was in fact the summer break back in Ponyville, so neither of them did even have any obligation to go back there for the school. Of course, Twilight had informed Spike by a scroll that he will be alone unless that he's going to staying with Rarity for a while, which he had no problem with since after all they were dating after this point. For the next few days, Starlight spent a lot more time with Cadence because she could somehow sense they were bonded over that. And of course, Cadence really much appreciated that Starlight wanted to spend time with her. So during those few days, they actually walked around in town, talked, and they bonded even more. But after a few days, unfortunately, they would have to go back to Ponyville. But of course, Starlight promised that she might be back soon again to see how things has been going for Cadence, which Cadence really appreciated. So after a few days of being staying there, they said goodbye and they left. From that day, Cadence and Starlight wrote letters back and forth to each other because the fact that they shared the same pain of the loss, even though Starlight didn't lose any pony like that before, but she just wanted to make sure that Cadence had all the support. And of course, Starlight was really happy to be able to connect it with Cadence. You also see what she had been up to back in the Crystal Empire, how the ruling has been going, how it's like to be raising Flurry Heart by herself. But just some time had passed since that day. Just like at least 2 months passed when Cadence one day realized she had started developing feelings for Starlight. At first, that she wasn't sure if this was actual, genuine feelings or even just temporarily. So she never actually mentioned this type of feelings to any pony, not even Twilight. She wasn't sure exactly at that point if she was in fact in love or it was just something that her heart made her to believe. But one day, Starlight actually happened to show up by a bit surprise. Because Cadence and Starlight had even talked about meeting up so soon. Even though, of course, there had been like 2 months between their last visit. But Starlight had it in her heart that she just wanted to maintain a look, but she had to make sure that Cadence are doing well and that everything. And even though the school of friendship hasn't even started yet, so Starlight still had some time that she could spend in Crystal Empire. She had informed Twilight that she was going to be there for a while, but she promised, or at least made Twilight not to write to Cadence to informing that she is coming over. She wanted to make it a bit of a surprise, which worked. I didn't expect you to be back here so soon, said Cadence, a bit surprised when she saw that Starlight walked in the front room behind a guard. Well, surprise. I mean, I did promise I would be back, didn't I? Well, yeah, you did. So they actually spent some time together, and after just a few days of Starlight's surprise visit, Cadence decided she needed to tell Starlight about her true feelings. She was prepared for it being rejected, or at least being turned down by, say, maybe the Starlight will say, I'm afraid I do like you, but not as in the same way as you feel about me. So she decided when they were sitting in the palace garden in early noon, just shortly after lunch. You know, I need to tell you something, said Cadence. Oh, for the past few while now, ever since your first visit with Twilight about a couple of months back. Yeah, what about it? Well, then she told her, what? Seriously? You, wait, so wait, are you serious? Yes, I am actually, said Cadence. But I understand if you don't. No, it's, if I had to be perfectly honest, I actually felt the same way to you. And that is actually even another reason to why I'm actually here. What? Seriously? Yes. Both were really surprised that Starlight had the same feelings for Cadence, and the fact that that was another reason for her to even to show up. But they were still happy. Cadence suggested that they could perhaps go on a date that same evening. So they actually did. They actually went to this small restaurant in town. At first, there was not much talking in the beginning as after they're being assigned a table. It was a bit awkward at first, but Starlight broke the silence by talking about some common interest. And eventually, the whole conversation went perfectly smoothly. And of course, even afterwards, when he went back to the palace, they were standing outside Starlight's guest room, and Keenan was like, you know, I don't even need any much more time to think about what I want. And what do you want? I want us to be as a couple, said Cadence. Unless that you no, I I do want that, said Starlight. But I'm just not sure how Flurry Heart will react. I mean, she's still young. Don't make her age fool you, said Cadence with a smile. She may be she may be 6 years old by now, but she is pretty smart for her age, so she may understand. But just in case if she doesn't understand or may not even accept the whole thing, we may have to tell her perhaps tomorrow or maybe wait a bit. I think we might have to wait just in case, just maybe a few days, maybe a little bit longer. I mean, how things play out. Cadence nodded. And since Starlight was gonna stay in Crystal Empire for at least about 2 weeks, which gave her a lot of time. But at the end of the staying, unfortunately, Starlight would have to go back since the school was soon will be open, and since she is a teacher there. But just before she left, she and Cadence had brought Flurry Heart to the front room to talk about them. At first, when they told Flurry, she would just tilted her head and looked at them as she didn't understand. But then she asked, "You mean like what, when you and Dad were? You know, kissing, hugging like an actual couple?" Both Cadence and Starlight blushed so badly when they looked at each other when they realized that, yep, Flurry was not that. She was very bright, even despite being so young. And they both nodded. Flurry then just looked at Starlight and then ran after her and gave her a hug and said, "Mommy, Starlight," she said a little bit like a joke. But that made just Cadance and Starlight look at each other with a bit smile and said, "Maybe one day, who knows?" said Starlight. Unfortunately for that, Starlight went back to Ponyville, but they still maintained communication by letters back and forward as usual. But now it felt different. Because back then, before this happened, they were just writing about their, like, only like a friend level. But now they were dating. It was a whole new topics. Talks about their potential future dates, what they wanted to do, and of course, a lot of things happened. It didn't take long for the whole kingdom became a full aware of Cadance and Starlight to actually be dating. Even when her Starlight's father back home found out, he was stunned to say the least, but he was more than happy to find out that his daughter was now seeing some pony because he had always assumed that she would end up with Sunburst. After all, they were childhood friends. But Sunburst was already seeing some pony else, at least what Starlight assumed. But even though the whole kingdom was now fully aware about the relationship, of course, they were not judging that. Even though they are officially dating, Starlight and Cadance was more than happy to finally be dating that some pony they liked the most. But that was another reason. They were unable to see each other as often they wanted. There were several reasons for that, of course. Like, one, Starlight was a teacher at the School of Friendship in Ponyville, Cadance being the ruler of the Crystal Empire, and the fact that the distance between the Crystal Empire and Ponyville were quite far. If Ponyville was located a bit more closer, they probably would be able to see each other more often. But due to the fact of distance, they were unable to see each other so often that even if they really, really wanted, but unfortunately, it didn't happen so much as wanted though. But then, but then, one time, actually, something happened. Cadance had invited Starlight to come over for spend some time with her in Florida, which he never received an answer from Starlight at all. Because the reason were because she wasn't even in Ponyville when this letter happened being arrived. She were back in her old childhood home in Sire's Hollow to see her dad. She actually had made plans to see her dad for a few days, and she was completely unaware of the letter had been reached Ponyville. Normally, Starlight would have received the letter from Spike or perhaps even Twilight, but since Twilight was not even in Ponyville either, and Spike was unfortunately also away with Rarity at the moment, so Starlight wasn't even aware of the letter had even arrived. So when she happened to arrive back home after a few days of spent time with Dad, she saw that the fact they were a letter to her, but it was addressed to her at least a few days ago. She was completely unaware, but she opened the letter and saw it was from fact Cadance. But there was even a second letter that had arrived from Cadance, which even was just very short. She wrote, "Dear Starlight, how come you had even replied to the first letter? Did something happen?" Signed, Cadance. Starlight wasn't exactly sure how to even reply, but at that moment, Twilight happened to arrive back home. Oh, hey, Starlight, are you back home so soon? I mean, I was going to be with my dad for just a few days, but what about this? Kina sent me two letters and no pony even bothered to send me them? Wait, did you know? About what? Unfortunately, I was out of town and stalled a spike at the same, and since no pony else is living here, so. Right. But if Kita's never received an answer, she might be worried about you. Can you. Of course, Starlight wrote a letter which Twilight sent to Cadance. Cadance responded quickly with sending another scroll back, which she wrote, "Dear Starlight Glimmer, I'm just happy to hear that you're okay. I was worried that something bad had happened to you. I mean, since you never responded to neither of my two letters, I was scared that something bad had happened, but I'm just happy to hear that you're okay. And due to some misunderstanding that no pony was able to send you the letters to you, and since you were also not aware that no pony was even back home, so it's understanding, and I'm not mad at you. Signed, Cadence. P.S. Me and Flurry are coming to see you in Ponyville in next few days. Starlight was more than happy to see Todd, to see Cadence and Flurry. And the next few days, it happened. They actually happened to arrive, and of course, Starlight and Cadence spent so much time together. Even when the winter happened to arrive to Equestria, Cadence invited Flurry, Twilight, Starlight to Crystal Empire to spend Heartwarming Eve with them. Of course, both Twilight and Starlight accepted the invitation. And on the actual day, they had so much fun. Played games, enjoyed some of the meal, and opened the gifts. They stayed there until like New Year's Eve. But then, when they were watching the fireworks, Cadence literally kneeled in front of Starlight and said, "You know, we haven't been together for that long, but I can see myself happy to be with you. Do you?" "Yes, I want to marry you," said Starlight with tears in her eyes. And even though they didn't even need to tell Twilight because she heard the whole conversation, she didn't say much except be happy for them. And it didn't take long for the entire Crystal Empire to find out about the engagement, and of course, the whole kingdom eventually find out about it. They decide to have the wedding in Crystal Empire in the summer. Cadence had asked Fluttershy to be her maid of honor. Starlight asked Twilight to be her maid of honor, and they even had asked Luna to be the one to perform the ceremony, which she was more than happy to. And even after the whole ceremony was over, and they all went to the palace garden for just only for the all invited guests to just enjoy some dancing, food. It was there Cadence gave Starlight a special gift. Of course, with the permission from Celestia and Luna to make Starlight immortal. Starlight didn't even hesitate because even though she remained as unicorn but now immortal, the lady actually went to Mount Ares for 2 weeks as a honeymoon. And meanwhile, they were on the honeymoon. Twilight looked after Flurry Heart back in Ponyville, and she had a great time. Both Starlight and Cadance very much enjoyed the honeymoon, with swimming in the ocean, enjoying the culture of the hippogriffs. They were just having such great time. After they had been married for about 3 years, Starlight and Cadance they wanted to start a family, even though they already had Flurry Heart, which Starlight had officially adopted shortly after the wedding. They asked Twilight for help. She was more than willing to help them. Starlight decided to be pregnant first, and she in fact got pregnant with triplets, three daughters, all alicorns. Even though that was a quite surprise because it turns out there has never even been a single twin or triplet in Starlight's family's history. When she informed her dad about it, he faded 3 times over when he told him. Because at first he was like, say what? Triplets? And then he fainted. I thought you said triplets. Yeah, I did. Which made him faint the third time. But he accepted the whole surprise. Even when Twilight or the others were informed, they were more than happy. And of course, she gave birth to three daughters, which they named Kyrie Glimmer, Jill Glimmer, Grace Glimmer. She was more than happy now to have a family of her own with Cadance. Triplet daughters was at least one unexpected that neither of them could even imagine. About 3 years later, they wanted to have some more children. So Cadance decided to get pregnant. This time, she actually was getting pregnant with quadruplet. She had three daughters and a son, which this daughter was named Laura Emerald, Claire Redstone, Mabel Rose, and the son was named Nolan Glimmer. And Jill was assigned to be the next heir to the throne. Even though Flurry was the firstborn of all of them, even though she was even older, but somehow she didn't even want to be the next heir to the throne. And when they were told about this, they decided to make Jill as a as a next heir, even though Kyrie was the firstborn of the triplets. But that was not much a problem. And of course, Flurry Heart very much enjoyed spending time with her brothers and her sister. Starlight was really happy to have Cadance in her life because before then, Starlight wasn't having any much focus on romance at the time. But it wasn't until after her visit along with Twilight when they went to see Cadance in Crystal Empire a few years back. At that time, during their visit, Starlight wasn't really much focused on romance or anything, but it wasn't until some time after the visit when Starlight started to realize she were starting to have some feelings for Cadance. Because at first she wasn't sure if she would even be, well, if she was even good enough for Cadance at all. After all, she was a royal, but also already had been married. But even though she had lost her husband a year prior, she wasn't sure if this wasn't even good enough. But she was at least willing to give her a chance to at least to admit her own feelings. So when she happened to confess to Cadance, she was prepared for being rejected or maybe turned down somehow. But when she found out that even Cadance had the same feelings for her, made it all work. Even Cadance herself was more than happy to share her life with Starlight. And not even only to have a family of her own with Starlight, but also raising them along with Flurry Heart. Because Starlight really adored Flurry Heart. And when they happened to adopt Flurry, because it was actually even Flurry Heart's own idea, she told her mother, Cadance, just before the wedding, that she would be more than happy to be adopted by Starlight officially. And of course, Cadance didn't she didn't ejected that idea either. And now she is more than happy to finally to be with the one. Even though her feelings, her love for Shining Armor will never fade away. Of course, Starlight knows that. She supported the fact that even that not she lost Shining Armor a year prior to the fact when they start dating, she understands that despite the loss, Shining Armor will always be in Cadence's heart. And that is something that Cadance shouldn't forget. She should treasure the time she had with Shining Armor, and now the same thing as she treasured it with Starlight. Even after all this, Cadance, her love for the Shining Armor is still strong and pure. They're equally strong as her feelings for Starlight. Starlight was really more than happy to finally to be with the one that she loved the most. Even if she wasn't expected, maybe not going to happen, but she was really happy. And this is how Cadance and Starlight Glimmer find a true love, got a big family together. The end.